영어 원서 읽기 500번 읽기 도전하고 있는 꾸준한 영어 테드쌤입니다. 요즘은 이 배경음악을 깔고 하는 게 굉장히 듣기도 좋고 제 목소리만 듣기 지겨우시잖아요. 그죠? 그래도 꾸준히 봐주시는 소수의 구독자님들 너무 감사합니다. 조금이라도 서비스를 개선하기 위해서 제가 배경음악을 깔아봤습니다. 백그라운드 뮤직이죠. BGM을 깔아봤는데 지겹습니다. 저도 지겨운데 듣는 분들은 어떻겠습니까? 그죠? 그래도 저는 이제 알아가는 즐거움이라도 있는데, 어쨌든 제가 알아가는 즐거움을 우리 구독자님들도 같이 함께 즐겼으면 좋겠는데, 제가 방법을 잘 모르겠어요. 어쨌든 여러분들도 꾸준히 한번 해봤으면 좋겠습니다. 꾸준히 하는 거에 대해서 생각을 많이 하다 보니까 요즘 여러 가지 생각이 듭니다. 제가 이제 학원에서 수업하고 있는 이제 여러 가지 수업 중에서 발음에 대한 부분들도 제가 영상으로 잠시 올려봤지만 물론 보충 영상들도 많이 올릴 생각입니다. 꾸준히 하는 영어에서 이제 누구나 알아들을 수 있는 쉬운 문법들에 대한 것들을 제가 한번 올려볼 생각이에요. 그러니까 영어는 외국어이기 때문에 어쨌든 문법도 해야 되고 단어도 해야 되거든요. 그래서 단어 하는 것도 어떻게 하면 잘 할 수 있는지에 대해서도 제가 같이 한번 올려볼 생각이고, 저는 뭐든 같이 할 겁니다. 그러니까 저 혼자 하는 게 아니라 제가 이미 알고 있는 거에 대해서 전달하는 데에서는 제가 이렇게 전달을 드리지만, 예를 들어 제가 영어 단어를 다 할 수 있는 건 아니잖아요. 그래서 단어를 외우는 것들을 방법을 제시한다면 저도 같이 여러분들하고 같이 하는 동영상을 올릴 테니까 여러분들이 같이 한번 동참을 해서 영어 실력의 향상을 이렇게 꿈꾸신다면 같이 해보시면 좋을 수 있는 그런 영상을 한번 만들어 보겠습니다. 지금 구상들인데 그것들이 바로바로 실천될 수 있도록 해볼게요. 자, 배경이 깔린 상태에서 Bunnicula 한번 읽어보도록 하겠습니다. Bunnicula Chapter 1 The Arrival. I shall never forget the first time I laid these now tired old eyes on our visitor. I had been left to home by the family with the admonition to take care of the house until they returned. That's something they always say to me when they go out. Take care of the house, Harold. You are the watchdog. I think it's their way of making up for not taking me with them, as if I wanted to go anyway. You can't lie down at the movies and still see the screen. And people think you are being impolite if you fall asleep and start to snore, or scratch yourself in public. No, thank you. I'd rather be stretched out on my favorite rug in front of a nice whistling radiator. But I digress. I was talking about that first night. Well, it was cold, the rain was pelting the windows, the wind was howling, and it felt pretty good to be indoors. I was lying on the rug with my head on my paws, just staring absently at the front door. My friend Chester was curled up on the brown velvet armchair, which years ago he'd taken out as his own. I saw that once again he'd covered the whole seat with his cat hair, and I chuckled to myself, picturing the scene tomorrow. Next to grasshoppers, there is nothing that frightens Chester more than the vacuum cleaner. In the midst of this reverie, I heard a car pull into the driveway. I didn't even bother to get up and see who it was. I knew it had to be my family, the Monroes, since it was just about time for the movie to be over. After a moment, the front door flew open. There they stood in the doorway, Toby and Pete and Mom and Dad Monroe. There was a flash of lightning, and in its glare, I noticed that Mr. Monroe was carrying a little bundle, a bundle with tiny glistening eyes. Pete and Toby bounded into the room, both talking at the top of their lungs. Toby shouted, "Put him over here, Dad!" "Take your boots off, you're soaking wet," replied his mother, somewhat calmly. "I thought under the circumstances." "But, Mom, what about First, stop dripping on the carpet. Would somebody like to take this? Asked Mr. Monroe, indicating the bundle with the eyes. I'd like to remove my coat. I will, Pete yelled. No, I will, said Toby. I found him. You will drop him. I will not, you will too. Ma, Pete punched me. I'll take him, said Mrs. Monroe. Take up your coat this minute. But she became so involved in helping the boys out of their coats that she didn't take him at all. My tranquil evening had been destroyed, and no one had even said hello to me. I whimpered to remind them that I was there. Harold, cried Toby, guess what happened to me? And then, all over again, everyone started talking at once. At this point, I feel I must explain something. In our family, everyone treats everyone else with great respect for his or her intelligence. That goes for the animals as well as the people. Everything that happens to them is explained to us. It's never been just a good boy, Harold, or use the little box Chester at our house. Oh no. With us, it's, hey, Harold, Dad got a raise and now we are in a higher tax bracket. Or come sit on the bed, Chester, and watch this Wild Kingdom show. Maybe you will see a relative. Which shows just how thoughtful they are. But after all, Mr. Monroe is a college professor and Mrs. Monroe is a lawyer, so we think of it as a rather special household, and we are therefore rather special pets. So it wasn't at all surprising to me that they took the time to explain the strange circumstances surrounding the arrival of the little bundle with the glistening eyes now among us. It seems that they had arrived at the theater late, and rather than trip over the feet of the audience already seated, they decided to sit in the last row, which was empty. They tiptoed in and sat down very quietly, so they wouldn't disturb anyone. Suddenly, Toby, who's the little one, sprang up from his chair and squealed that he had sat on something. Mr. Monroe told him to stop making a fuss and move to another seat. But in an unusual display of independence, Toby said he wanted to see just what it was he had sat on. An usher came over to their row to shush them, and Mr. Monroe borrowed his flashlight. What they found on Toby's chair was the little blanket bundle that was now sitting on Mr. Monroe's lap. They now unwrapped the blanket, and there in the center was a tiny black and white rabbit, sitting in a shoebox filled with dirt. A piece of paper had been tied to his neck with a ribbon. There were words on the paper, but the Monroes were unable to decipher them because they were in a totally unfamiliar language. I moved closer for a better look. Now, most of the people might call me a mongrel, but I have some pretty fancy bloodlines running through these veins, and the Russian wolfhound happens to be one of them. Because my family got around a lot, I was able to recognize the language as an obscure dialect of the Carpathian Mountain region. Roughly translated, it read, "Take good care of my baby," but I couldn't tell if it was a note from a bereaved mother or a piece of Romanian sheet music. The little guy was shivering from fear and cold. It was decided that Mr. Monroe and the boys would make a house for him out of an old crate and some heavy-duty wire mesh from the garage. For the night, the boys would make a bed for him in the shoebox. Toby and Pete ran outside to find the crate, and Mrs. Monroe went to the kitchen to get him some milk and lettuce. Mr. Monroe sat down, a dazed expression in his eyes, as if he were wondering how he came to be sitting in his own living room in a wet raincoat with a strange bunny on his lap. I signaled to Chester, and the two of us casually moseyed over to a corner of the room. We looked at each other. "Well, what do you think?" I asked. "I don't think rabbits like milk," he answered. Chester and I were unable to continue our conversation because a deafening crash commanded our attention. Pete yelled from the hallway, "Ma, Toby broke into the rabbit's house." "I didn't, I just dropped it. Pete won't let me carry it. It's too big, Toby's too little." "I'm not, you're too." "Okay, fellas," Mrs. Monroe called out as she entered with the milk and lettuce. "Let's try to get it in here with as little hysteria as possible, please." Chester turned to me and said under his breath, "That lettuce looks repulsive, but if there's any milk left, I get it." I certainly wasn't going to argue with him. I'm a waterman myself. At that moment, the crate arrived, barely standing the strain of being pulled in two directions at once.
Ma, Toby says he's gonna keep the rabbit in his room. That's not fair. Harold sleeps in his room. Only sometimes, I thought. But I know he's got a leftover ham sandwich in his drawer. Toby's a nice kid, don't get me wrong. But it doesn't hurt that he shared his stash with me. It was, after all, at one of those late-night parties in Toby's room that I first developed my taste for chocolate cake. And Toby, noting my preference, has kept me in chocolate cake ever since. Pete, on the other hand, doesn't believe in sharing. And the only time I tried to sleep on his bed, he rolled over me and pinned me by my ears so that I couldn't move for the rest of the night. I had a cricket in my neck for days. But he's mine, Toby said. I found him. You sat on him, you mean? I found him, and he's sleeping in my room. You can keep smelly old Harold in your room, and Chester too, if you want to, but I'm gonna keep the rabbit in mine. Smelly old Harold? I would have bitten his ankle, but I knew he hadn't changed his socks for a week. Smelly indeed. Mr. Monroe spoke up. I think the best place for the rabbit is right here in the living room, on that table by the window. It's right there, and he will get lots of fresh air. Peter's taller than I am, Toby cried. He will be able to see the rabbit better. Too bad, Squirt. Okay, said Mrs. Monroe through clenched teeth. Let's put him to bed and make him comfortable, and then we can all get some sleep. Why? Peter asked. I don't want to go to sleep. Mrs. Monroe smiled a little too sweetly at Pete. Look, Ma, said Toby. He's not drinking his milk. Chester nudged me in the ribs. Didn't I tell you? He asked. Excuse me while I make myself available. Hey, said Toby. We gotta name him. Can't Dad wait until tomorrow? Asked Mr. Monroe. The boys shouted in unison. No! He has to have a name right now! I have to say, I agreed with them. It took them 3 days to name me, and those were the 3 most anxious days of my life. I couldn't sleep at all. Worrying that they were really gonna call me Fluffy as Mrs. Monroe had suggested. Well, all right, sighed Mrs. Monroe. What about, oh, say, Bun? Uh-oh, there she goes again, I thought. Where did she get them? Yuck, we all said. Well, then, how about Fluffy? She offered hopefully. Peter looked at his mother and smiled. You never give up, do you, Mom? Meanwhile, Chester, who had also been named Fluffy for a short time, was rubbing against Mrs. Monroe's ankles and purring loudly. No, Chester, not now, she said, pushing him aside. He wants to help us name him, don't you, Chester? Toby asked, as he scooped him up into his arms. Chester shot me a look. I could tell this was not what he had in mind. Come on, Harold, Toby called. You've got to help with the name, too. I joined the family and the serious thinking began. We all peered into the box. It was the first time I had really seen him. So this is a rabbit, I thought. He sort of looks like a Chester, only he's got longer ears and a short tail, and a motor in his nose. Well, said Pete, after a moment, since we found him at the movies, why don't we call him Mr. Johnson? There was a moment of silence. Who's Mr. Johnson? Asked Toby. The guy who owns the movie theater. Pete answered. No one seemed to like the idea. How about Prince? Said Mr. Monroe. Dad, said Toby. Are you kidding? Well, I had a dog named the Prince once. He replied lamely. Prince, I thought. That's a silly name for a dog. We found him at a Dracula movie. Let's call him Dracula, Toby said. That's a stupid name, said Pete. No, it's not, and anyway, I found him, so I should get to name him. Mom, you're not gonna let him name me, are you? That's a favoritism, and I'll be traumatized if you do. Mrs. Monroe looked in wonder at Pete. Please, Mom, please, Dad, let's name him Dracula, cried Toby. Please, please, please. And with each please, he squeezed the Chester a little harder. Mrs. Monroe picked up the bowl of milk and moved toward the kitchen. Chester followed her every movement with his eyes, which now seemed to be popping out of his head. When she reached the kitchen door, she turned back and said, Let's not have any more arguments. We will compromise. He's a bunny, and we found him at a Dracula movie, so we'll call him Bunnicula. Bunnicula. That should make everybody happy, including me. What about me? What is the Chester? I won't be happy until she puts down that milk. Well, guys, is that okay with you? She asked. Toby and Peter looked at one another, and then at the rabbit. A smile grew on Toby's face. Yeah, Mom, I think that name is just right. Pete shrugged. It's okay. but I get the pity. Okay, I'm gonna put the milk bag in the fridge. Maybe he will drink it tomorrow. What about Chester? Toby said, dropping the pranky cat to the floor. Maybe he would like it. Chester made a beeline for Mrs. Munro and looked up at her plaintively. Oh, Chester didn't want any more milk, do you, Chester? You've already had your milk today. She reached down, patted Chester on his head, and walked into the kitchen. Chester didn't move. Okay, bedtime, said Mr. Munro. Good night, Bunnicula, Toby said. Good night, Count Bunnicula, Pete said sarcastically, in what I took to be his attempt at a Transylvanian accent. I may be wrong, but I thought I saw a flicker of movement from the cage. Good night, Harold. Good night, Chester. I licked Toby good night. Good night, smelly Harold. Good night, Dan Chester. I drew on Peter's foot. Mom, Harold drew on my foot. Good night, Pete, Mrs. Murner said with great fidelity as she came back into the living room, and then more calmly, Good night, Harold. Good night, Chester. Mr. and Mrs. Murner went up the stairs together. You know, dear, Mr. Murner said, that was very clever, Bunnicula. I could never have thought of a name like that. Oh, I don't know, Robert, she smiled as she put her arm through his. I think Prince is a lovely name, too. The room was quiet. Chester was still sitting by the closed kitchen door in a state of shock. Slowly, he turned to me. I wish they had named him Fluffy, was all he said.
한번 다 읽었습니다. 다시 또 돌려볼게요. 참 미련한 것 같습니다. 그죠? 제가 하면서도 미련한 것 같습니다. 근데 미련한 거 맞습니다. 미련한 거 맞는데 분명한 거는 제가 처음 이걸 읽었을 때 올린 동영상을 보면 저 나름대로 열심히 진짜 최선을 다해서 읽었는데 지금처럼의 스피드와 지금처럼의 어떤 감정 그리고 영어를 읽는 것에 대한 어떤 인토네이션과 리듬, 액센트들이 제대로 살지는 않았던 것 같아요. 물론 지금도 퍼펙트하진 않아요. 근데 훨씬 제가 많이 부드러워졌고 제 나름대로는 와우 이 정도면 굉장히 잘 읽는 거 아니야? 라는 어떤 만족감도 있어요. 물론 이제 하다 보면 조금씩 마음에 안 드는 부분들이 있어. 그거는 이제 고치고 싶어요. 자, 그래서 또 할 겁니다. 자, 미련한 것 같습니다. 미련한 것 같지만 저 미련둥이가 어디까지 가는지 한번 지켜봐 주시면 꼭 좋은 결과 낼 거예요. 한번 지켜봐 주세요. 자, 또 읽겠습니다. Chapter 1 The Arrival I shall never forget the first time I laid these now tired old eyes on our visitor. I had been left home by the family with the admonition to take care of the house until they returned. That's something they always say to me when they go out to take care of the house. Harold, you are the watchdog. I think it's their way of making up for not taking me with them. As if I wanted to go anyway. You can't lie down at the movies and still see the screen. And the people think that you are being impolite if you fall asleep and start to snore or scratch yourself in public. No, thank you. I'd rather be stretched out on my favorite rug in front of a nice whistling radiator. But I digress. I was talking about the first night. Well, it was cold, the rain was pelting the windows, the wind was howling, and it felt pretty good to be indoors. I was lying on the rug with my head on my paws, just staring absently at the front door. My friend Chester was curled up on the brown velvet armchair, which years ago he'd taken out as his own. I saw that once again he'd covered the whole seat with his cat hair. I chuckled to myself, picturing the scene tomorrow. Next to grasshoppers, there is nothing that frightens Chester more than the vacuum cleaner. In the midst of this reverie, I heard a car pull into the driveway. I didn't even bother to get up and see who it was. I knew it had to be my family, the Monroes, since it was just about time for the movie to be over. After a moment, the front door flew open. There they stood in the doorway, Toby and Pete and Mom and Dad Monroe. There was a flash of lightning, and in each glare I noticed that Mr. Monroe was carrying a little bundle with tiny glistening eyes. Pete and Toby bounded into the room, both talking at the top of their lungs. Toby shouted, "Put him over here, Dad!" "Take your boots off, you're soaking wet," replied his mother, somewhat calmly, I thought, under the circumstances. "But Mom, what about the... First, stop dripping on the carpet." "Would somebody like to take this?" asked Mr. Monroe, indicating the bundle with the eyes. "I'd like to remove my coat." "I will," Pete yelled. "No, I will," said Toby. "I found him. You will drop him. I will not. You will too." "Mom, Pete punched me." "I'll take him," said Mrs. Monroe. "Take off your coat this minute." But she became so involved in helping the boys out of their coat that she didn't take him at all.
My tranquil evening had been destroyed, and no one had been said hello to me. I whimpered to remind them that I was there. Harold, cried Toby. Guess what happened to me? And then all over again, everyone started talking at once. At this point, I feel I must explain something. In our family, everyone treats everyone else with a greater respect for his or her intelligence. They go for the animals as well as the people. Everything that happens to them is explained to us. It's never been just a good boy, Harold, or you, the little box Chester, at our house. Oh no, with us, it's hey, Harold, the dad got raised, and now we are a higher tax bracket. Or come sit on the bed, Chester, and watch this Wild Kingdom show. Maybe you will see a relative. Which shows just how thoughtful they are. But after all, Mr. Mono is a college professor and Mr. Mono is a lawyer. So we think of it as a rather special household, and we are therefore rather special pets. So it wasn't at all surprising to me that they took the time to explain the strange circumstances surrounding the arrival of the little bundle with the glistening eyes now among us. It seems that they had arrived at the theater late, and rather than trip over the feet of the audience already seated, they decided to sit in the last row, which is empty. They tiptoed in and sat down very quietly so they wouldn't disturb anyone. Suddenly, Toby, who the little one, sprang up from his chair and squealed that he had sat on something. Mr. Murner told him to stop making a fuss and to move to another seat. But in an unusual display of independence, Toby said he wanted to see just what it was he had sat on. An usher came over to their row to shush them, and Mr. Murner borrowed his flashlight. And what they found on Toby's chair was the little blanket bundle that was now sitting on Mr. Murner's lap. They now unwrapped the blanket, and there in the center was a tiny black and white rabbit sitting in a shoebox filled with dirt. A piece of paper had been tied to his neck with a ribbon. There were words on the paper, but the mourners were unable to decipher them because they were in a totally unfamiliar language. I moved closer for a better look. Now, most people might call me a mongrel, but I have some pretty fancy bloodlines running through these veins, and the Russian Wolfhound happens to be one of them. Because my family got around a lot, I was able to recognize the language as an obscure dialect of the Carpathian mountain region. Roughly translated, it read, "Take good care of my baby." But I couldn't tell if it was a note from a bereaved mother or a piece of Romanian sheet music. The little guy was shivering from fear and cold. It was decided that Mr. Murner and the boys would make a house for him out of an old crate and some heavy-duty wire mesh from the garage. For the night, the boys would make a bed for him in the shoebox. Toby and Pete ran outside to find the crate, and Mrs. Murner went to the kitchen to get him some milk and lettuce. Mr. Murner sat down, a dazed expression in his eyes, as if he were wondering how he came to be sitting in his own living room in a wet raincoat with a strange body on his lap. I signaled to Chester, and the two of us casually moved over to a corner of the room. We looked at each other. "Well, what do you think?" I asked. "I don't think rabbits like milk," he answered. Chester and I were unable to continue our conversation because of a deafening crash commanded our attention. Pete yelled from the hallway, "Ma, Toby broke the rabbit's house." I just dropped it. Peter won't let me carry it. It's too big, Toby's too little. I'm not, you're too. "Okay, fellas," Mrs. Murner called out as she entered with the milk and lettuce. "Let's try to get it in here with as little hysteria as possible." Chester turned to me and said under his breath, "That lettuce looks repulsive, but if there's any milk left, I get it." I certainly wasn't going to argue with him. I'm a waterman myself. At that moment, the crate arrived, barely standing the strain of being pulled in two directions at once. "Ma, Toby says he's gonna keep the rabbit in his room. That's not fair. Harold sleeps in his room." Only sometimes I thought that when I know he's got a leftover ham sandwich in his drawer. Toby's a nice kid, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't hurt that he shared his stash with me. It was, after all, at one of the late-night parties in Toby's room that I first developed my taste for chocolate cake. And Toby, noting my preference, has kept me in chocolate cake ever since. Pete, on the other hand, doesn't believe in sharing, and the only time I tried to sleep on his bed, he rolled over on me and pinned me by my ears so that I couldn't move for the rest of the night. I had a prick in my neck for days. "But he's mine," Toby said. "I found him." "You sat on him, you mean?" "I found him, and he's sleeping in my room." You can keep Smelly old Harold in your room and Chester too, if you want to, but I'm gonna keep the rabbit in mine. Smelly old Harold? I would have bitten his ankle, but I knew he hadn't changed his socks for a week. Smelly indeed. Mr. Warner spoke up. "I think the best place for the rabbit is right here in the living room on that table by the window. It's light there, and he will get lots of fresh air." "Peter's taller than I am," Toby cried. "He will be able to see the rabbit better." Too bad, Squirt. Okay, said Mrs. Munro through clenched teeth. Let's put him to bed and make him comfortable, and then we can all get some sleep. Why? Pete asked. I don't want to go to sleep. Mrs. Munro smiled a little too sweetly at Pete. Look, Mom, said Toby. He's not drinking his milk. Chatter knocked me in the ribs. Didn't I tell you? He asked. Excuse me while I make myself available. Hey, said Toby. We gotta name him. Can't that wait until tomorrow? Asked Mr. Munro. The boys shouted in unison. No, he has to have a name right now. I have to say, I agreed with them. It took them 3 days to name me, and those were the 3 most anxious days of my life. I couldn't sleep at all, worrying that they were really gonna call me Fluffy as Mrs. Munro had suggested. Well, all right, sighed Mrs. Munro. Well, what about, say, Bun Bun? Oh, there she goes again. I thought, where did she get them? Yuck, we all said it. Well, then, how about Fluffy? She offered hopefully. Peter looked at his mother and smiled. Ma, you never give up, do you? Meanwhile, Chatter, who had also been named Fluffy for a short time, was rubbing against Mrs. Munro's ankle and purring loudly. No, Chester, not now, she said, pushing him aside. He wants to help us name him, don't you, Chester? Toby asked, as he scooped him up into his arms. Chester shot me a look. I could tell this was not what he has in mind. Come on, Harold, Toby called. You've got to help me with the name too. I joined the family, and the serious thinking began. We all peeled into the box. It was the first time I had really seen him. So this is a rabbit, I thought. He sort of looks like a Chester, only he's got longer ears and a shorter tail and a motor in his nose. Well, said Pete, after a moment, since we found him at the movies, why don't we call him Mr. Johnson? There was a moment of silence. Who's Mr. Johnson? Asked Toby. The guy who owns the movie theater. Pete answered. No one seemed to like the idea. How about the prince? Said Mr. Munro. Dad, said Toby. Are you kidding? Well, I had a dog named the prince once, he replied lamely. Prince, I thought that's a silly name for a dog. We found him at a Dracula movie. Let's call him Dracula, Toby said. That's a stupid name, said Pete. No, it's not. And anyway, I found him, so I should get to name him. Mom, you're not gonna let him name him, are you? That's favoritism, and I'll be traumatized if you do. Mrs. Munro looked in wonder at Pete. Please, Mom, please, Dad, let's name him Dracula, cried Toby. Please, please, please. And with each please, he squeezed the Chatter a little harder. Mrs. Munro picked up the bowl of milk and moved toward the kitchen. Chatter followed her every movement with his eyes, which now seemed to be popping out of his head. When she reached the kitchen door, she turned back and said, Let's not have any more arguments. We will compromise. Here's a bunny, and we found him at a Dracula movie, so we will call him Bunnicula. Bunnicula. That should make everybody happy, including me. Including me? What about me? Muttered Chester. I won't be happy until she puts down that milk. Well, guys, is that okay with you? She asked. Toby and Pete looked at one another, and then at the rabbit. A smile grew on Toby's face. Yeah, Mom, I think that name is just right. Pete shrugged. It's okay, but I get to feed him. Okay, I'm gonna put the milk back in the fridge. Maybe he will drink it tomorrow. What about Chester? Toby said, dropping the frantic cat to the floor. Maybe he would like it. Chester made a beeline for Mrs. Munro and looked at her plaintively. Oh, Chester doesn't want any more milk, do you, Chester? You've already had your milk today. She reached down and patted Chester on his head. Ed walked into the kitchen. Chester didn't move. Okay, bedtime, said Mr. Munro. Good night, Bunnicula, Toby said. Good night, Count Bunnicula, Peter said sarcastically, in what I took to be his attempt at a Transylvanian accent. I may be wrong, but I thought I saw a flicker of movement from the cage. Good night, Harold. Good night, Chester. I licked Toby. Good night. Good night, Smelly Harold. Good night, Don Chester. I drooled on Peter's foot. Mom, Harold drooled on my foot. Good night, Pete, Mrs. Munro said with great finality as she came back into the living room, and then more calmly, Good night, Harold. Good night, Chester. Mr. and Mrs. Munro went up the stairs together. You know, dear, Mr. Munro said, that was very clever, Bunnicula. I could never have thought of a name like that. Oh, I don't know, Robert, she smiled as she put her arm through his. I think Prince is a lovely name, too. The room was quiet. Chester was still sitting by the closed kitchen door in a state of shock. Slowly, he turned to me. I wish they had named him Fluffy, was all he said.
자, 두 번 읽었습니다. 자, 오늘은 여기까지만 하도록 하겠습니다.